I don't know if you guys have been following the Epstein saga. So Jeffrey Epstein was the guy who him and Ghislaine Maxwell, who was basically one of his pimps, went out and recruited underage women who typically came from broken homes, gave them money, gave them a job, and introduced them all these rich and powerful people. And Prince Andrew being one of them. And so what was interesting when, so Alex Acosta, who was the DA up in Palm Beach County when Epstein was originally prosecuted for basically being a pimp and being involved with underage women, he says, and you can see the interviews if you just look him up, where he was told, the higher up said, hey, Epstein is our guy. He belongs to intelligence. So hands off. And so he got away with everything, and people were wondering why, because this guy worked under Trump. I think it was a Health and Human Services, ran Health and Human Services for Trump. And so people were like, well, why didn't you go after this guy Epstein? It was pretty obvious what he was doing. He says, I was told hands off. He belongs to intelligence. And so here you got, I know we've talked about this in previous episodes, but you got Epstein and Ghislaine, these other people, and one of his friends were, this guy's name is Jean-Luc Brunel, and he was another guy that was feeding girls into this program. And so we know that at least American intelligence was using or running Jeffrey Epstein. And so you got the richest, most powerful oligarchs in the world, members of royal families. Obviously, Prince Andrew was one of his pals. We're getting together and having sex with these underage girls. And apparently what we've all read was that his estate, the island where he had everybody flew into, had cameras everywhere, probably microphones. And so it looks like Epstein was blackmailing people, or the intelligence agencies were using him to blackmail people. And you can imagine how something like that works. Hey, we've got this girl. Turns out, oh, she wasn't 18 or she was under 17 or whatever. And yeah, you slept with her. And unfortunately, she got a video on her cell phone. But hey, we got the cell phone. We paid her off. As long as we send her X amount of dollars every month, everything will be cool. And so you can see how they could kind of use situations like this. They get the wealthiest, most powerful elite oligarchs. Bill Gates was one of his pals who went to the island. Bill Clinton was one of his best pals. And you're hanging out with the richest, most powerful people. We know our intelligence agencies are running this guy as some kind of asset. I also heard that the Israelis were potentially running this guy. And who knows? It could have been a smorgasbord of intelligence agencies using Epstein to blackmail the richest, most powerful people in the world because they were basically having sex with underage girls. And so Epstein hung himself in prison, and now his pal also was found dead in prison by hanging. And it's like those kind of things you're like, and then Ghislaine Maxwell gets prosecuted, and there's like, what about her list of clients? What about all the people? And then, all the records were sealed. The judge sealed the records. And so we just don't even know what happened. It just looks bad. You would think somebody that did all these things would be trying to save her own skin and would say, hey, in order to shorten my sentence, I'll tell you everybody that was there and testify against it. But none of that happened. It just looks like it was a mop-up operation. And now these guys are, this guy was found dead. And I also read, I don't know if it's true or not. I'm sure you'll tell us, Esty, but right after this guy, Epstein's pal and fellow pimp, I guess, was, he hung himself and the cameras weren't working. So we don't have any video to see what had happened. So tell us, what's the story with this guy?
As reported in The Sun, the fashion agent was found hanged a few days ago in his prison cell at La Santé in Paris. Jean-Luc Brunel, 76, had been indicted and remanded in custody in December 2020, following accusations of rape and sexual assault of minors, including 3 12-year-old sisters.
What a dirtbag. So you can imagine, you get the world's global elite diddling kids, and it supposedly is filmed because there were cameras there, and it's like all this stuff. I think when the FBI finally showed up at the island, everything had been, all the camera equipment, all the hard drives, it all been cleaned out. It was long gone. But there were, I guess, CDs that were part of the trial that were sealed that had all kinds of pictures and video of these girls.
Brunel ran Karen Models in Paris and later formed MC2 Model Management with Epstein. He was described previously as a pedo multimillionaire's best mate and pimp. Brunel denied involvement directly or indirectly in any of Epstein's offenses in a statement issued in 2015. However, Epstein's victim, Virginia, claimed she was forced to have sex with Brunel at Epstein's home, as well as Brunel farmed out modeling hopefuls to the pedo, as well as other men for sex. He was charged with securing girls and young women for Epstein. Brunel was in prison until his suicidal death. Prosecutors said an investigation into the causes of death has been opened after he was found overnight.
And of course, the cameras weren't working in his cell.
They're still investigating.
What a quinky dink. That's just, of course, totally legit. And of course, Epstein's cameras weren't working either. And the two prison guards, they had fallen asleep mysteriously and then lied about on their logs that they had checked up on them.
After the incident that happened with Brunel, Ghislaine Maxwell's family fears for her safety. According to the New York Post, Maxwell was convicted last year of sex trafficking, allegedly introduced Brunel to billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who was found hanging in his Manhattan lockup in August 2019. Quote, "It's really shocking," Ian Maxwell, one of Ghislaine's siblings, told the Post. Quote, "Another death by hanging in a high-security prison. My reaction is one of the total shock and bewilderment," end quote. Following her December 29th conviction on sexual abuse charges, Maxwell was put into a room at the prison with a psychiatrist and two others, including a guard with everything recorded on camera, her brother said. Quote, "Despite the psychiatrist advising to the contrary, she was deemed a suicide risk and they are continuing to wake her up every 15 minutes in the night. It's a complete violation of prisoner rights and human rights," end quote, Ian Maxwell said. Maxwell insisted his younger sister is not suicidal and said it was ironic that Epstein and Brunel, who died of apparent suicides, were not on suicide watches in their respective prisons. Epstein had been taken off suicide watch shortly before his death in August 2019.